This is our last and our best episode with Dr. Sharlene Belton-Gonzalez. She's the superintendent over in St. Croix. We've really talked about, how do you build a blue ribbon culture? How do you build a culture that people feel nurtured, that people feel that they really want to grow? And then how then is that manifested into success? Our last piece, our third episode is always around advice. So Dr. Belton Gonzalez, and I'm going to say Super G is what they call those they court, right? Super G. If you could tell us, I mean, what advice would you give new leaders? I mean, if you're leading your first district, if you are a leader who really is trying to get into the superintendency, what advice would you give them going forward?
Yeah, sure. So my advice would be to learn as much as you can about the
Mhm.
position. And this would include networking and meeting people who are already in the position who can give you valuable insight on their experiences. I would suggest seeing if you could shadow individuals to get a feel for what it likes to sit in the seat.
Okay.
When I was going through my superintendent certification program, I was director for bilingual and ESL programs at that time. And part of the requirements for the program was that I complete an internship with my then superintendent. So I learned a lot about the position, things that you wouldn't see like in a textbook, things that I hadn't really thought about. He was able to share with me some of his own experiences about just going to the grocery store or going to church. Things like that can be scrutinized just on how you're dressed or whatever it
Right.
is you're buying at the grocery store, just because
Right.
you're the superintendent and people expect to see you at a higher level. So
Exactly.
it's a position that never stops. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you just because you go home at the end of the day does not mean that you're off the clock. So
Mhm.
you have to be willing to accept that as long as you're in the seat, you can have an emergency at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you have to attend to it. You have to take care of it. Apart from that, I would say you have to have a supportive family.
Mhm.
Your family has to be prepared for the superintendency, because holding the position means that you're going to be taking some time away from them that you would normally
Exactly.
be having with them, that you have set aside with them. I also would recommend speaking to superintendents in various geographical areas,
Right.
because there's always going to be challenges, but some of the challenges are based on geographical locations. So when
Exactly.
I was going through my program, I was in a district that was a little bit outside of Dallas. And
Mhm.
so I was able to get that perspective, but then I wanted to get another perspective. So I just started kind of almost cold calling and was
Right.
just sending emails to
Cool.
superintendents across the state
Right.
just so I could get various perspectives. And I was able to get a different perspective from another superintendent who was in a very rural, small place where you're
Right.
just always under the microscope. And
Right.
so that would, and then even for me, it was, going to the Virgin Islands, that's quite different as well, too. But you never really know what it's going to be like until you're actually in the
In
seat.
it. Right.
Although, it, like I said before, it's good to make sure you prepare and you talk to people and you network. But it's just like anything else. We all study to become teachers, and
Right.
then that first day of school, it's like, wow.
Boom. Remember that? Boom. Like, oh my God.
Yes.
I
So
remember that. I
yes,
remember that.
it's the same thing. You learn and you grow, and you just have to make sure to keep in mind that we're still students. Even though
Right.
you're a superintendent, the learning never
Never
ever
stops.
stops.
I like that.
You
And
have to continue going to conferences, taking
mhm.
classes, just
Right.
remaining abreast of what's going on, and talking to other superintendents even while you're in the seats to see how
Right.
they handle various situations, because once you get up to this level, it can be a very lonely position because
Right.
you're the only one there. And
Right.
so it's very important also to take care of your social, emotional well being and
Yeah.
try to do things that you love
Right.
so that you can keep up the motivation and then just always keep in mind why you went into it. And I would say those of us that are in education, we went into education because of our love for children
Right.
and wanting to be a part of building our children so that they can flourish when they become adults. And so that's just something that you all, because there's going to be days where you're going to be feeling down, you're going to be
Right.
feeling overwhelmed.
Right.
It can be very stressful, but
Right.
you have to keep your goals in mind, and you have to keep those kids in mind as well. And so, one thing that I do just to keep the momentum going,
Mhm.
I love being on campuses, and so. I've been known to fall behind on my emails because I'm on campuses
Yes.
and I'm in classrooms and
Yes.
I try to go to the events the kids had. Just recently, I
Yes.
went to a dance recital, spelling bee. I had a chance to go to the JROTC
Hmm.
military ball. And believe it or not, it's a good way to interact with kids and talk
Yes.
to them
Right.
about their high school career. And then, of course,
Hmm.
when you go to the elementary schools, you
Yeah.
always get love with
Oh
the
yes, hugs. I love the hugs. Yes. Yes.
so
Yes.
that is like that just does something for my soul.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I make it a point. I'm out at campuses several days a week so that I can get my feel of the students. And
I
so
love it.
those are my recommendations and my
Well,
advice.
Dr. Belton Gonzalez, if there's a couple patterns that I've seen throughout the entire three episodes, at the end, you always bring us back to the why, which is children, right? The
Mhm.
work is the work, but you always say when it's all said and done, we're doing this work to ensure that children are productive, that they're successful, and they're amazing citizens, right?
They're
And we
not
are
They're going to be taking care of us one day.
right, right. You see,
Right.
right, we got to make sure they're right, right? And that's one thing. But to go back to where you started with it, you started with we're not just a superintendent just does not run campuses. A superintendent is the pillar of the community, which means that as a superintendent, leadership 101, and we know this is principals and executive leaderships of small districts. Everybody's looking at you, right?
Yes.
And when you don't think they are, folks. They're looking at you and what you do, right?
Are.
That's number one, right?
Yes.
The next thing is through that takes a lot of time, and you've got to make sure you prepare your family for that because
It's
the
true.
the type of commitment that you're looking at, the type of dedication that you're looking at as a superintendent or a executive leader or even a campus principal, that's going to take away from some of the time with your family.
Mhm.
Another thing you talked about was some strategies that you've seen to be successful. Networking, to keep, these are strategies to not burn out, right? Networking.
Right.
This is a lonely job. How do I network with people? How do I talk to people? You talked about how you reached out to so many different people to see what this experience looks like. Understanding that every district has its own DNA and it has its own culture, right? A St. Croix is totally different than a Dallas Independent School District, right? This totally different than a Wakulla, Florida. So how do you really begin to look at making sure that you are not only a leader but you're a servant of the community? And you talked about that in your dedication and your commitment to children. I'm telling you.
It's true. And I'm thinking back to I talked about when I was director for bilingual and ESL. I
Hmm.
had a really great mentor. She was assistant superintendent at that time, but now she's the superintendent of the district. And some advice that she gave me is, when we get in these district leadership positions, we're customer service agents. And
Yes,
so our position is to support everybody that works around us and make sure
exactly.
that they have everything that they need
Right,
because people need to feel like you care. They need
right,
to feel like you have their best interests at
right.
heart. And we just when it comes down to it, basically, we just have to provide the support that they need.
Exactly.
You got to make people feel loved.
We do, and that's what sometimes we forget. This is
Mhm.
a relationship
We're
business. It's
dealing with
about,
humans.
yes, we're
Building
building.
capacity.
Exactly. So,
Mhm.
Dr. Super G, Dr. Super G
Yeah.
is what I'm calling you, right? Folks, if you haven't got all three episodes, you got to make sure you go back to all three episodes. Now, I know Dr. O'Halloran is going to be at the upcoming conference, but folks, we're going to try to get old Super G there as well. We're going to try to get Super G at the conference as well, right? Because a lot of these pieces, this is what leaders are truly talking about as we facilitate the work. And it's good to sit down, like she said, with whether you're in St. Croix, whether you're in we've got leaders coming from North Carolina, leaders coming from CPS, Chicago Public Schools, leaders coming from LA Unified, leaders coming from Oregon, all across this country. We even got folks coming from Nebraska, folks, all right, in South Dakota, to really talk through, like, what does this truly look like in their district? And what are successes and strategies that they've heard tweaked a little bit, and how they facilitated those strategies to be successful. So folks, if you're not a part of the NDPC family, make sure that you click on that link. We want to get you connected. And I'm going to call you Dr. Super G. I'm going to call you that. I want to thank you so much for just coming in and really giving these, I'm going to call them pearls and gems, to our NDPC family and our SPN family. All right. So thank you so much.
This was my pleasure. I truly enjoyed myself.
Definitely, definitely, folks. Again, if you want any additional information, don't hesitate. You click on to our website. We've got more than enough resources, more than enough success stories, more than enough content to actually give you and get you started. And in any way that we can assist you, whether that's with Dr. Super G, Dr. Belton Gonzalez, or all superintendents, leaders, teachers, and principals across the country work with, we want to make sure we get you connected. So thanks again. And folks, we'll see you in our next episode of the Future Focused Success for All Students podcast. Thanks a bunch.